Hello, I'm Joanna North. I'm a psychotherapist and psychologist. Welcome to my Mindkind podcast.
So, I'm Jo North and I am the manager at Joanna North Associates, and we are an intermediary adoption agency. And that means that we have the great joy of helping people trace their birth relatives. And when I say great joy, I mean there's a very, very mixed bag of emotions that we work with people, and it's a very complex matter. But we do enjoy our work enormously in working with people. And today I'm really happy to be talking to Richard, who has agreed to talk with us about his tracing story, which is going to be very interesting and helpful. So hi, Richard.
Hi. Thanks for having me on.
Thank you so much. So it's a complicated story, and you've spent a long time giving thought to and trying to resolve all of the links and the complications that have arisen. But just could you kick us off with how you did your tracing and what promoted you to do that?
Yeah, of course. So I've always known I was adopted. It's always been a part of me I'm actually sort of very proud of for lots of reasons. But there's always been sort of that unknowing of where I've come from, perhaps actually, where some of my traits come from and such like that. So it's always been of interest to me to try and trace and find out birth, parents, family, cousins, aunties, uncles, anything else like that. And so about 4.5 years ago, probably about 5 years ago now, actually decided that it was time for me to try and find my natural mother. I used an air hunter. A friend had passed me her details. He's also adopted, and he had managed to have success finding some of his natural relatives through her help, and that sort of started unraveling an awful lot for me. Really.
Yeah. So you were quite clear that you wanted to make that search. It was
absolutely, yeah. No, I've always been very certain of that, and I'm very fortunate that my adopted parents were always, I've always, as far as I can remember, known as adopted, and they had always said that they would offer help and support as they could to try and find a natural family should I want to. I actually knew quite early on that it was a journey that I wanted to do for myself. It was the most personal thing I had to me, and I felt that it was a journey that sort of I alone needed to embrace and undertake, really. Maybe naively, I'm not sure, but yeah, that's what I decided to do.
Yeah, so you're quite clear. And how long did it take? Was it a difficult trace? Was it complicated to and who were you tracing? A parent or a father or mother or?
Yeah, so in this instance, I was searching for my natural mother, and actually it was pretty quick. When I spoke to the aunt on the phone, she was able to find there and then where I knew where I'd been born. I knew the name I'd been born under, so I was able to give over that details, and obviously I knew my date of birth. And so there and then on the phone said, "Oh, well, I've got 3 possibles of who you may be," and she just wanted to get my birth certificate and such to confirm bits and pieces, which she managed to do relatively quickly. And within a matter of weeks, she had an address for my natural mother. It was very quick, very fast, which was perhaps surprising.
Yeah. Were you surprised that it was that easy?
Well, I suppose I don't really have anything to compare it to.
No.
But maybe I was surprised. I mean, my friend who'd used his hunter to find his family, he said, once you open Pandora's box, there's no going back. And he was very right in that. So I perhaps was naive in how quickly things may go forward, and it was a matter of weeks that my actual mother's just been found, and started to try and make contact.
And what was the outcome of that?
So it was exceptionally positive, actually. Sort of very fortunate that, and in the words of the hunter, my actual mother hadn't been hiding. She was quite good, detailed links of where she'd lived over the past 34 years after adopting me, and it was great. So we fairly quickly, Hunter sent off a letter on my behalf, just saying that someone by name Richard is looking for natural relatives and what have you, and it all happened very quickly from there, really, and gave over telephone numbers, email addresses, postal addresses, everything. And she just wanted to speak to me. She was really keen, really excited about that prospect. So I'd always had, I suppose, dream's not the word, but I very much considered and always wanted to handwrite a letter to the national mother before doing anything else. So getting this information and getting her address, that's exactly what I did. Spent a little bit of time of composing that, and managed to send it off with my phone numbers and such. And just a few days after that, I had a phone call from my natural mother for the first time, which was kind of special.
That's huge. I mean, was it pre-arranged, or did you just?
No, it wasn't.
Oh my goodness! So the phone rang, and you picked up the phone, and there she was.
I had some pre-warning in that I knew I'd been given her number, so I'd stored my phone already in anticipation of perhaps a phone call, so I could have all of 30 seconds of, okay, this is happening. I actually remember I was in the middle of a work phone call on my other telephone, so I saw my personal phone flash up and I saw who was trying to call me. And then I just lost all idea of what was going on in the meeting I was having. So I closed that meeting down quite quickly, apologising. I wasn't exactly sure what we were talking about anymore. And I remember, getting up from my office desk, walking outside and sort of walking around the office buildings that I was working at for a while, for about 10 minutes before I sat down, plucked up the courage and gave her a call back.
It was like sort of, you're in the middle of a meeting and then something earth-shattering happens, and nobody in that meeting would have
had any idea, no. No, and they present completely. I had absolutely no knowledge at all of what I was doing at the time, what I was trying to achieve.
So then you called back, and how did that go?
It was really nice. The actual conversation is a little blurred. I did quite a lot of emotion, and it was the first time I'd ever heard my natural mother's voice, so that was quite overwhelming, really. And I remember she was actually sat in the garage just taking her car to be serviced. So it was all just normal day living, but then also extraordinary things happening for both of us. And I can't remember an awful lot to say about what we spoke about, but I think it was she was really pleased that I had got in contact with her. It's evident. Turns out I had 4 half brothers and sisters, which was incredible to find out, and she told me everything about them. And basically she asked me if I had sort of any Facebook and such like that, which at the time I did. I figured, okay, well, perhaps we can match on Facebook, and so we can just perhaps see a little bit about each other's lives, and then get into a Facebook messaging group with my siblings and my mother. And we sort of started talking on there, really.
It seems at this point that you felt quite good about it and quite hopeful about it.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Everything had been positive. Her response to me, the timescales, it was fairly immediate in her response back to try and get in contact. I remember speaking to her, and she was just overjoyed. We had the conversation that when she said that she had made contact with my natural mother, because she just said that my natural mother just wanted to meet me. She just said that's all. She just wanted to get to know me and meet me.
I know that, people at this stage, it's just overwhelming, isn't it? It's just a crazy amount of thoughts,
Yeah, absolutely. I've been processing it ever since, I suppose.
Yeah. So tell us how the whole thing progressed.
Yeah, so everything for the first few months was just sort of a continual chain of increasing my family, really. So after that initial phone call, we probably messaged a little bit, and then ultimately, we said that we'd been asked to meet up. So I ended up took a day off work, went down to where they were living at the time, and my actual mother had suggested a little restaurant, cafe, bar place that we might meet in, and it was probably like 11 o'clock in the morning, so it wasn't exactly many people in there other than staff. I'm just walking in through the front door, and I could see her at the far end of the room. She stood up as soon as I walked in, and we just walked, sort of met in the middle of the room between the two of us, and it just had a big hug. It was the sort of first thing that happened, which was.
And just without giving away locations, was she geographically a long way? Had she always been a long way away, or?
So not massively. She was about an hour and a half drive from me.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
So not desperately far.
No. Okay. Yeah.
Which was handy,
Yeah. Sure. Yeah. So it continued to be strong and positive and engaging and.
Well, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I think we sat in this cafe for about an hour, and I don't know, what would you say on the first conversation to someone who brought you to the world and never met before? But we were.
Well, give us a clue. What did you say?
I mean, this might sound odd, but I sort of approached it as thinking I was going on a first date. It was sort of like, well, I'm meeting someone for the first time I haven't met before.
Yeah.
Obviously, we're expecting very different outcomes from this, but it's just trying to talk about myself in sort of what I'm interested in, things like that, and asking the same with her, really. Obviously asking about my siblings, and then I remember sort of at the time she was sort of asking if I had a good childhood, if I'd had a good upbringing, and I've always considered that I have done. So I was perhaps a little modest about it. I said, yeah, no, it was all fine, but again, I didn't want to. I didn't know what that really meant to her. But at later dates, when she kept on asking, I realised she was trying to see if she had done the right thing. She was trying to ask if did I giving you away? Was that okay, sort of thing.
Yeah.
And so later on, I'll sort of say that my adopted parents, always did whatever they could for me, loved me dearly, still love me dearly, and they've done the best that they can for me. So.
Yeah. I mean, we often find that mothers that give children up frequently want to be reassured, really, that their child was okay, but and so you were able to understand that she was seeking that reassurance. Yeah.
Absolutely.
And so it seemed at that point that there was quite a lot of understanding, and that you felt safe and secure, and it all seemed to go well. Did it continue? Or?
Well, so that initial day, like you say, my memory of it is the most difficult thing I felt like I had to do that day was, what flowers do I buy my mother I've never met before? So I remember that feeling the most difficult thing, stood in the supermarket looking at the flowers. Everything else, it just felt like, and I can't really describe it in any way than that, like coming home. Everything about it just felt right. Everything in my being, everything sort of aligned. It was great, and ended up going down regularly after that first meeting, sort of staying with them and getting to know know that family, and soon afterwards end up meeting up with sort of extended family, or aunties, uncles, cousins, who I do still see regularly, which is lovely.
Yes, there's a lot of people to meet, and lots of people certainly very interested in who you were, and I dare say a lot of people who looked a bit like you, which is something we always think.
To a degree. I think I take a bit more after my natural father. However, it is apparent that looking back at grandfather and stuff, there possibly is some remnants of me in them as well, as you imagine.
Did you meet your father then as well, or?
So I'm actually in the process of doing that now, hopefully.
Oh, okay.
So I have actually, you come back with the same answer as last time, and I've sent off a letter. As yet, I've had no response, which I'm sort of not surprised about, and I'm kind of okay with. For me, I've done what I can in that, and I'm at peace now that I would have regretted not trying to find him. And of course, it'd be nice to know if I have got any other half siblings and such out there, or any other family. But I really am at peace with the fact that I've done what I can. And if he ever chooses to come back in contact.
Did you trace him through an air hunter, or did you do that yourself?
So.
Or perhaps that's private.
No. I'm just trying to think how the order of things, really. So yes, ultimately I did it through the air hunter. I found my natural mother and family about 4.5 years ago, as I mentioned, and since I'm very close with the vast majority of that family. So one of my aunties, I know, managed to find him on Facebook. She, through my cousin, offered him on Facebook. I always thought that that's not how I'm going to do that, for his sake and for mine. I think that's dangerous, potentially very upsetting set of circumstances which could arise from an out of the blue message like that. So I'd always decided that I was going to do it using the air hunter, so there's that barrier for both our sakes. I was quite fortunate. I don't know how regular this is, perhaps you can tell me, but with my adoption I was given some interesting documents, one of which can only describe as handwritten case notes from an interview between my natural mother and her social worker. It's a very odd piece of paper. On the back of it's got half of a mortgage-approved stamp, and it's just all handwritten notes. How on earth it ended up being given to my adopted parents, I don't know. But that document was passed to me, and within that document it describes my natural father, my natural mother, dates of birth, where they were born, stuff that they were interested in, stuff like that. So that really was the information I had, and that's what I took with me to the air hunter, and she was able to find him from that. That sounds,
I can imagine that your adoptive parents would have had some paperwork that they would have kept a hold of. But well, it will be interesting to see what happens there. It sounds like your feet are on the ground, and this is, you're sanguine and you're quite secure about that piece.
Please don't forget to subscribe to this podcast so you don't miss future episodes. And if you can rate the podcast in your podcast app, that will help spread the word and help more parents.
It didn't always go well with your adopted mom. Things changed and the story sort of changed direction.
It did, and it's still somewhat in that case. So I guess, let's say 5-6 months after I first met her, we used to message quite a lot on Messenger, and then all of a sudden it was just complete cut off. There was no there might have been a thumbs up or a yes or no, but there was no engaging conversation coming back from messages. I stopped hearing from her and such. And then we would meet up at sort of family parties or what have you. She was very distant, and I sort of, I guess found it. Well, I know she's got an awful lot of bits and pieces going on, so I think I'm part of the iceberg, but by no means all of it. But that was obviously extremely distressing to me because I didn't understand or couldn't understand what had happened, what had changed. And actually it was a second abandonment to me, and that, I think that people here listening are adopted, you're all aware of that sort of visceral feeling of that you perhaps can't always verbalise, but there's just that trauma that's with all of us, which I'd always lived with, and as I say, didn't know that that's what that was. More recently, I've had some counselling and helped me work through and understand that that's what that is. But when my natural mother decided or was unable to continue conversing in the same way, that was an adult trauma. That was an adult realisation to me that was very difficult, and that was
Well, no explanation, no, just a swerving in direction that must have been baffling.
Well, that's how I took it. That's how it felt to me. I, at the time, very much took it as it's something I'd done. Even if there might have been the odd message that said, it's not you, this is just how I am. I, having not known her my entire life, don't know how she is as a person, or was, or is, I suppose she's still here, but say that I found that very tricky, and very different approach to dealing with things to how I'd been brought up from my adopted family, very much better at talking about things, talking about our feelings and what's going on. So that was really interesting. I think how I felt the entire time that I was, and actually even today, I feel like every interaction, I've been the adult or the parent in that relationship. Which is interesting, I suppose, especially as she has children of her own. I perhaps understand if she didn't have more children, if she didn't have any other children, that might be a bit more understandable. But anyway,
Were your siblings able to throw any light on it? Was anyone able to throw any light on the matter?
So, to a degree, I've spoken to a couple of my siblings, aunties, and such about this, and basically what I think, and the sort of biggest shame of it all, is that I think more than anything, it's my natural mother's psychological health, which is mental health, which is at problem here, and I'm not convinced that she's perhaps sought or got the help and support that maybe professional help and support that perhaps that she needs for these kinds of things. I know she's had an awful lot of trauma herself, different things, and I think it's just really sad that her means of dealing with that is shutting herself off. And speaking with my auntie, her sister, I know my auntie has been ignored for the past few months as well. So it isn't just me. I have very much learned it's not my doing. It is my natural mother's problems. But that doesn't necessarily make it easier because, of course, she's my natural mother. I want her to be well. I want her to be happy. I don't want her to be in pain. So it's really tricky.
Yeah, very, very tricky for you in terms of your self-esteem and how you feel about yourself. I mean, certain people, we need you need strong responses from them, and it sort of sounds as if you didn't get that, and it must have been made you fall back on yourself and your own inner resources to survive that.
Yeah, no, I think that's right. You know, I certainly did a lot of learning and I continue to do learning. Days of school days, everyone says, but yeah, I think it's fair to say I probably went into the whole experience a little naively. But then, how are you ever properly prepared for something like this? You know, there's so many exceptionally complex variables that every circumstance is going to be very different, isn't it? I think all you can do is go into it with best intentions and sort of love and kindness, and hopefully everything will sort of pan out in a good way. And for the absolute most part, that has done for me. And I know, I know my natural mother, she does care for me. She does love me. I'll get happy birthday messages and such. It's other stuff that's going on in her world that is just far too much for her to deal with.
Yeah.
Everything else.
Yeah. So in a way, you might be a lot more psychologically resourceful than she is because of your upbringing, and in a way that that's fortunate and helpful.
Yeah, that is true. But I yes, no, absolutely. I 100%. I know my adopted parents were very good in aiding me in lots of that. And then I wonder if sort of adopted people have a sort of a resourcefulness, because we had to learn to love other people who weren't our natural parents from a very young age. So we become adaptable from day dot. In my case, I was taken away from my natural mother. She, heard that she had her eyes closed. I was taken away, and then I was in foster care for about 6 weeks or so before then I was passed to my adopted parents. That's an awful lot for a little person to go through, and that's something that we live with. I certainly do day to day. But I do think it's a positive in that respect that I can be adaptable with different relationships and being able to hopefully manage stuff some sort of way.
And it's sort of you've clearly given it a lot of room to think about. And it's not so uncommon for us in our work to experience this when we do searches, that it doesn't go so well, it doesn't go so easily. There's a sort of mismatch in some respects, and sometimes it does go well, but it doesn't always go well. And I just wonder if you've got any ideas about, is it possible to prepare somebody, and what has been the most helpful in helping you come to terms with this?
So I can't say enough how helpful it was for me to have that barrier. So I know you offer that service, Joe, where you can be, that stopgate for letters going to and from and the rest of it, and so you can just sort of manage people's expectations possibly better than, I think we mentioned earlier that my aunt had very kindly found my natural father on Facebook, and the idea of, for me anyway, for going straight to him, that does fill me with an awful lot of anxiety, just for his sake, as if nothing else. If he was unaware that I existed, or if he did know that I exist, either which way, there's been decisions made that he hasn't contacted me immediately after the birth or since. And so, I think for me, I need to be very respectful for that, and be careful and cautious, I think, for yourself, well, for myself and for his sake.
Yeah, you can't be careful enough, and you're absolutely right. We spend a lot of time thinking with people about their expectations and priming them, and saying, look, because people have very high expectations and very idealised versions of what can happen, and which is entirely understandable. We're all idealising something, aren't we? Non-adopted people are idealising something. It's something that we do to create hope in our lives. But we're certainly always trying to manage that. And you know what, it doesn't matter how much we manage it, we still get these scenarios that are complicated, and we have to help both sides of the equation settle. And it's a huge psychological upheaval. It's not like moving house. It's a psychological rearrangement of your thinking.
And it's integral to us.
It's
both
integral.
people. It's from day dot and slightly longer, not much longer from my natural mother. It's every fibre of our being that is being tested and set alight with, as you say, hope and anxiety, and it's all mixing in a big old pot. And so I'm absolutely 100% happy. Everything I've done and the way I've done it, I've done the way I wanted to do it, and I've done it the best way for me. So I have absolutely zero regrets for anything that I've done. And I'm still hopeful that my natural mother will be able to hopefully get some professional help, deal with some of the other stuff that I know she's got going on. And maybe, we can start to repair and rebuild and have a bit more of a normal relationship. But I say normal, what's normal?
Well, exactly. Or at least something just comfortable for you.
Comfortable. That's first.
That's good enough, isn't it? You know that these things can be good enough and comfortable and fit a little bit better. But how were your adoptive parents through all of that? Have you kept that from them, or have they been supportive?
So no, they are very much aware now. I actually told them the day that I was about to sit down and write my letter to my natural mother. So I'd received the answer that yes, your natural mother would love to get in contact, and that's when I told them. And as I said, they've always been incredibly supportive for me and everything. But particularly for my adoptive mum, I think there's a difference between thinking what something would be like and then when something actually happens. And it was tricky, and it is still tricky for her. Her words were that she's worried now that she's now got to share me with another woman, another mother. And that was, it's really deep, really hard for her. They weren't able to have children, and then she'd taken on somebody else's little person. So, she's somehow got perhaps even more elevated concerns about their well-being and welfare, knowing that she's been given guardianship of someone else's child. So that's really powerful, and it has been really tough for her. And I hope I've done my best to kind of reassure her that she's still my mother and stuff. But I know that's difficult as well, and perhaps I need to do better with that. In all truth, because I do know, she finds stuff like that difficult.
But I suppose that they've got their own journey with it, haven't they? For which you are not responsible.
No.
And so again, we see this side of the story as well, that people come to us searching and they don't tell their adoptive parents, or they do tell them and the adoptive parents might be upset, but of course modern adoptions are so very different, because children are adopted and they understand very early on that they're adopted, and adoptive parents are absolutely encouraged to be aware of the birth parents. And even then, I know it's very hard for them. I know from our work that's very difficult, but it comes with the territory.
Yes.
There's sort of like there's three of us in this marriage. And so we need to get you used to that idea. So it's a big one, but in a way, it's sort of, you can't do that part of the journey for them, can you? I mean, you can be kind and supportive, but that's about it, I think.
Absolutely, and I absolutely that, but still, I still see them weekly. So it's maintaining that reassurance that yes, you are still my parents. You will always be my parents. And actually, I said to my actual mother for her concerns, I said that I'm not looking for you to replace my parents. They are my parents, absolutely.
Yes.
Always will be. But
yes.
I want to get to know you just from where I came from point of view.
Yes.
Which was a relief actually to my natural mother when I took that at the time.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, is there any advice that you would give? Being a bit of a veteran at this, and pulling yourself through, and I know it hasn't been easy, but you've been quite determined to get through, and you've arrived at pretty solid ground. But what advice would you give?
I think ultimately, if you're true to yourself, and you're going to know these relationships with people you have around you, parents, siblings, whoever, I think if you're true to yourself and you're true to them, it might be very painful for a lot of people involved, but ultimately, this is a journey you want to need to make for yourself, as I did. If you've done it as best in your gut that you can do, then ultimately everything else is the stuff that comes with it, and that's not your doing. The issues that I now have with my natural mother, that's her stuff. I know that now. Again, the stuff with my adopted mother, I know a lot of her anxiety and issues are also her stuff. So it's taken me a long while to get to that, and I might feel differently about it tomorrow, but I feel that I've done everything as best I can, morally correctly as I can, and hopefully trying to accommodate everyone's feelings as best I can. That I'm absolutely happy with how I've gone about everything, really.
Yeah, I think that's great advice. My advice, that I'm not an adopted person, but I work a lot with adopted people and very intensely a lot of the time, and so I don't know what you think of this advice. I think people need to go into this with some good boundaries around them.
Yeah, that's sensible. I mean,
and to be able to draw limits and say this is mine, and other people are going to have journeys, and to be kind, but to put boundaries around yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think hopefully that's what I'm doing now with the search for my natural father. As I said, I was more naive with the natural mother, and that ultimately was a very successful, it really is a successful meeting of my natural mother, and I absolutely regard it as that. But yes, now the stuff that I'm with my natural father, I don't know what it could possibly mean to him and his now family, if he has a family. Having an intermediary and being able to talk to professional people to help me with some of these decision-making processes has been invaluable. So,
yeah. We don't. Well, I hope we can share that bit of the journey with you, because I know that we have more conversations to have, and it's certainly an important thing for you. It's a pleasure to talk to you. Thank you so much. Because I think that your story is meaningful to people who are undertaking this journey, and it'd be particularly meaningful to people where things don't quite go as expected, and where there's difficult changes from people. I think that hearing your story will help others to feel more resilient. It feels like the end of the world, but we can't let it be. We can't let it be the end of the world for people.
No, I think indeed, and ultimately, that's a couple of times. I'm just happy in the knowledge that I've done what I can do, and I will take what I can and what people are willing to give from that.
Yeah,
and that's fine for me now.
And just what do you think you've learned then? You've given your advice, but what have you learned from this?
Just how exceptionally complicated relationships are. It's just staggering, and normal family relationships are one thing, but when you putting the complexities of an adopted mix into it all, it's just mad. So yeah. You can't second guess anything.
Yeah.
You can't second guess anything. It's just, you've just got to sort of play it through and see how it goes and hope for the best.
Yes, these interactions between all of us are complicated. We really have to listen and understand. I think, you know, my learning is listen and understand, and then there's always more.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Thank you for listening. We will continue to discuss this and other topics related to child mental health. So make sure you subscribe, and if you have any questions for future episodes, please email me. There is a link in the podcast description.